I'm Carrie and welcome to my channel. This is my wee homestead in the Scottish Highlands, where I try and grow as much of our own food as possible, and I have a lovely little flower garden and a few hens. I'm really into self-sufficiency and I love to make jam, I forage and I freeze as much of our produce as possible. I grow and dry my own herbs, make tea, and I make my own soap. I just love trying to be a wee bit more self-sufficient and less reliant on the shops. This year I'm making my calendula balm really soon with my homegrown calendula here. I dry them in my dehydrator and then I add them to almond oil for an infusion for a few months, and then I make this beautiful calendula balm that I use on everything. I absolutely love it. I've also been picking chamomile, meadowsweet, yarrow for making tea. Also mint and lemon balm makes beautiful tea. So I pick it all now and then that's me set up for the winter. We have quite a few hens which give us eggs all year round. They're absolutely amazing hens and I love them to bits. They roam over the few acres and they can run really fast, which surprised me with hens. They love to run. I can grow quite a few things here in the Highlands, but some things does depend on the weather. This is my wildflower patch which has chamomile in it and it comes back every year and it's lovely. This summer hasn't been so good, so I haven't had quite as nice as displays last year, sadly. I've made quite a lot of jam already this year. I've made raspberry jam, strawberry jam, wild blaeberry jam, rosehip jam, and I've made ravenberry jelly. So I think that's almost set up for winter, and I've frozen a lot of berries as well. We still have to get the bramble harvest. They've just started here in the Highlands. Brambles and elderberry for making medicinal syrups and elderberry tea, which is lovely. I'll also be heading out to get some more rosehips soon to make rosehip syrup, which is full of vitamin C. It's absolutely delicious as well. I always like to think of what I can make that's free so I don't have to buy it, and definitely some nice syrups for winter will do when we have sore throats or colds. I like being less reliant. There are some vegetables that do really well in the Highlands, like tatties, potatoes, swedes, carrots, onions. They regularly do well every year, no matter the weather, which is great. But I find with more warmer vegetables like tomatoes and pumpkins, it is a struggle sometimes. Like this year, I am struggling to ripen my tomatoes, so I have decided to cut all the foliage off to try and get the tomatoes as much light as possible so they can hurry up and ripen before the end of summer. Usually I would have quite a few ripe tomatoes by now, but this year has been tough. And even in a tunnel, they still are very green. So hopefully this lets the air circulate and help ripen them. So I love to make passata for the winter. I make it and then I freeze it, and then it's just ready to eat whenever we want it. I love growing my own food. I love knowing where our food comes from, rather than buying it in a plastic tub from a supermarket. You don't know who grew it, what's sprayed on it, nothing. So I prefer, if I can, just to grow as much as I can. And obviously that is the goal, one day to become self-sufficient in fruit and vegetables, but I think that's going to take me a wee while longer. I am almost self-sufficient in kale though, so that's something. And I'd love to be self-sufficient in fruit. We have planted about 8 apple trees, apple, pear and plum, and this year we got quite a few fruit from it, but obviously fruit takes a wee while to get established, so hopefully in the future we'll have a fantastic apple harvest and we won't need to buy apples anymore. And I go foraging quite a lot for fruit, so this year I filled my freezer with blaeberries, which are blueberries, but that's what they're called in Scots. And I've got quite a few in the freezer now, so I'm hopeful that'll last us all winter, because blueberries are expensive, aren't they? and they freeze really well. They don't stick together, so I just put them straight in the freezer as soon as we pick them, and we'll be heading out to pick brambles soon, so I'll do the same, and hopefully that'll tide us over. We can have brambles and blaeberries on porridge and with yogurt, and I like them in muffins, really tasty. It's so satisfying growing and foraging for your own food. It tastes so much better as well because it's fresh. That's the thing, when you buy vegetables and fruit from the shop, you don't know how old anything is. It could be very old, taken over in planes. I like knowing that it's in my garden or in the forest. Trying to eat more locally and what's in season at the moment. Obviously that's easier in the summer, but hopefully by freezing and preserving our harvests with jam and frozen berries, I can extend this summer into winter. Talking about winter, there's not many things that grow here over winter, but I find if I get it in the ground by mid-August, I'll have a good harvest of lettuce over winter. So that's what I've sown in the tunnel. I've sown a lot of cut and come lettuce and spring onions. Got another crop of peas growing. I've sown turnips and a few Swedes, and obviously being in the tunnel, that should extend my growing season a wee bit longer. I've got some modules inside growing spring cabbages for next year. I've got Savoy cabbages growing, kale, purple broccoli again for next year. And in my brassica tunnel outside, I've got quite a few kale plants. We love kale. And we've got broccoli, we've got lettuce and cabbage for the winter, and we have Romanesco cauliflower, but that's almost finished now. That really suffered this summer. It didn't grow well at all. I think it was just the intermittent rain and not much heat. It was a very strange summer for my Romanesco cauliflower. It's wonderful having a tunnel. It really helps me extend the summer by growing in here. I can grow things without worry about what the weather's like outside. Like in the tunnel, I've planted my pumpkins in here because outside it was just too cold this year for pumpkins, sadly. But even in the tunnel, I've not had that good a crop. I have 2 big pumpkins and a few small ones, and that is a strange year for me because normally I have a lot of pumpkins. I love them, and I've sown a lot of plants as well, so it's been a tough year. We have hardly seen the sun this summer in the Highlands. And in the tunnel I've got sweet potatoes, so I don't know how they're going to get on, but it's fun to try new things. I prefer to grow things I know will grow rather than experimentational things, but it is nice to try new things occasionally. The tomatoes look much better with a wee haircut. You can actually see the tomatoes now, and they're ripening now in the sun, which is great. Can ripen them inside with the help of a banana and a box, but if I can ripen them on the vine, I would prefer to do that because it's much tastier. I've got my carrots in my grow bags over here. I've not had much luck with carrots the past few years because the hens have got into every carrot bed that I've planted and scratched them all out. So this year I decided to grow them in the tunnel, and they are growing great, so that is positive, and I've sown a few more, so hopefully we'll get a harvest later on in the winter. There's some green pumpkins, hopefully they're going to ripen soon. Keeping my soil healthy is very important to me, and we have chickens, so obviously we use their bedding for fertiliser in the garden, and in the winter I let them roam around the veg patch and they help with that. I also make use of what's nearby in the Highlands, and that's seaweed. Traditionally, seaweed was used in the garden by crofters, and I get quite a few bags of it every winter, and I lay it on my beds, and the soil absolutely loves it. I also make liquid seaweed fertiliser by putting some seaweed in a tub and filling it up and just letting it sit for a while. That's what we buy from the shops, and you can just make it and it's much better. I'm also a big fan of growing my own flowers, and these are my wildflowers, and I like to put them in pots inside and just enjoy them, especially when it gets windy and they get blown over, so I like taking them inside and they look so pretty in the house. It's definitely turning more autumnal every day now. It's cold in the morning and dark at night, and I feel like the cold season is just around the corner. So I'm trying to cling on to summer as much as I can, but I can feel it coming in the air, which is exciting though. I do love foraging for mushrooms, which is an autumnal hobby. And soon the pumpkins will be getting harvested, and every year I make pumpkin puree, which is just delicious. So we do have a few things to look forward to in the autumn, and the leaves changing obviously. I make nice leaf mold every year with the fallen leaves, and then it's fun watching the colours change of the trees in the garden. Just such a lovely place to live in the Highlands. It's so beautiful year round. There is no season that is not beautiful here.